Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, you all showed up. You probably received a letter in the mail about unknown for what your water service is. And trying to determine that. As you can see, I have a lot of material in front of us, but we'll get to this in a little bit. But you all received a letter stating that we're on for sure of what your service is at your residence. We had to have a lot of the information to MDE by October 16th. So there's still a lot of services. We know what they are, but when you know what the service is, it goes from answering one question to about 50 more questions. I have a stop dead date. So sometimes it might not be all unknown, but we had to stop at that. I introduce myself. I'm Jamie Latcham. I'm the Director of Water Resources. I have Dave Bassett, which is the Director or Superintendent of Water, Drinking Water, and all the water stuff. Kate, which helps do the presentation and a lot of the paperwork that you all received. And we have our Town Administrator, Mary Boland, which is sitting up front here. And hopefully she doesn't get too mad with me for talking much. But tonight was more or less just to inform you that the town is progressively doing a lot of changing out. If we find out there's a leak, if we find out what kind of pipe it is, we're replacing it to the main. As you can see out here on Pitt Street, the other week it was closed. We changed them three services out because they were lead goosenecks. And when I say lead gooseneck, this is the biggest part that NDE and the EPA are talking about is the lead gooseneck. So we are changing these out as fast and as quickly as we can if there's a leak. We're just not going to go and dig this up and change it out if you call and request us to change it. First off, it's not cheap. Second off, the material are hard to get right now because we were mandated by EPA, so this is across the country. Parts are very hard to get, and
Don't get us wrong. If we ever found that,
it is being removed.
we had to get rid of it. That's been law for years.
Yeah, so we're not, if we see lead, it's coming out, but I don't want to scare you saying that we're not going to pick and choose. The town was successfully able to get some funding to redo some streets. Right now, NDE give us some funding. We're going to start on William Street to be probably tore up here in the next couple of months. So everybody on William Street will have a new water service. You can see their design or their layout of everything that proposed. We're going to redo everything on the main because this is actually what is tied to the main. You'll see this long one here. This is to the main. Then you have your curb stop and then your meter setter. So you will have a new pit in your yard. And when we get done, you all will be able to walk up here and ask us questions and whatever. So we're doing away with these and putting this on the water main. And then you'll have a poly line. Everything we have here, you'll see it says on there, it should say NL, no lead. Which when you remove lead out of a lot of these parts, it drove the price up pretty expensive. But we are trying to make sure we change everything out and do it accordingly to MDE. And we do hope to have a lot of the new the services replaced and a lot of stuff updated because I'm not saying we're behind, but if there's a new law required, we're trying to do the best we can to make sure you all have the proper drinking water. Not to alarm you, but we just did our lead and copper test, and the town was perfect. So, I mean, I know some people don't feel easy about that, but we did 40 samples all over town, different residents. We do our CCR report, which is our Consumer Confidence Report, which you can find on the town website. We should have put a link up, but it's in our town website. That has to be done every year. And that tests for about 80 different chemicals in the water system. We've done very well on that. You know, we can't post it unless MD approves it. So everything has to go through MD to get approved. Right now, as we go, we still are test pitting and investigating. So I know some people might not be here tonight, but we test pitted in people's yards. When we replaced the water meters, there's only one street in town here that didn't get new water meters. That's William Street, because we're going to replace all these meters when we put in the new water services. But everybody else in town, everybody in town has a new water meter with the exception of one place. But we're changing out the meters, and when they changed a lot of the meters, that's when they test pitted the front side. You had a hole in the front side and you had a hole in the back side of the yard. We have to go 2 foot from the pit on each side. We didn't get to all of them because we just didn't have enough time to get to them. So we took over starting to do the test pitting and inventory ourselves. We do have about, I think we have about 300 to 500 services, depending on how the budgets come in, to replace within the next 3 years. Our thoughts are is we're going to do William Street, Broad Street, Bay Street, and Main Street, because the town received a grant from NDE to replace stuff on State Highway. But we're going to do William Street first because William Street is, they're supposed to pave it, so we're trying to beat their paving schedule, which is looking like April, May this year. So we're going to try to beat them on William Street to replace all the services from this intersection to Food Line. We have a bunch of other work we want to do in town, replacing services. And if you, the town typically owns to the meter are usually within, if you have a sidewalk, we try to keep them within the right of way. Some of them might be out just a tad bit, but we try to stay everything in the town right away, so that way we can access the property. So if here's a little bit of NDE's connected and their water service to every residence. We will replace all the services to the meter, and from the meter to the house will be the responsibility of the homeowner. And that's what I'm understanding correctly right now from what we're being told. Is there any other slide on there, please?
So can I interrupt you?
Yes, sir.
So when you replace the main line and supply to our dwellings, is it mandatory that I have to replace my line
No, sir.
from the street to my residence?
No, sir.
It's not mandatory?
No.
Does the water pressure, would the improved service increase water pressure such that my line may fail?
Yes. It's not gonna fail, but Dave was kind enough to bring one of the old ones up here. But if you can see, this is one of the lines we dealt with the other day where we had a leak.
Is that a copper line?
But what happened is that every time we cut a spot, put our clamp on there to fix it, to tie our meter into it, it would break a little bit further back. Then it would break further back. Then it would break further back. We ended up going almost 11 feet past the meter to find a good spot. And
You gotta realize, some of this old galvanized is 60 years old.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
you've answered my question. Forgive me for interrupting you, but
No,
you
I mean,
answered
that's
my
what we
question.
want.
I don't want to open up a can of worms too early here yet, but so you've answered my question about what my responsibility is going to be, but there may be unintended consequences, is what I'm hearing you say, when you replace that new main feed to our dwellings.
yes, we're gonna do everything possible to make sure that when we cover it up, it's not leaking.
Right.
What it happens in 6 months after we leave, I can't promise you nothing. But, we're being mandated by MDE to start changing this stuff out. So we have an obligation to do that to the meter.
Okay, so but you answered my first question, that it's not going to be mandatory for me to replace my line, but it's possible if it fails, I have to. The second question I have is, how good are the town's records to help me know where my line is? Because obviously I have, actually on one I know pretty much where it is.
Well-
The other one, I don't know where the line is.
The newer homes, we have a better record of, but we stop at the meter. It should be in the folder downstairs in the planning and zoning, how the water and sewer run, but we stop at the meter. We don't go past the meter. That's our limit of responsibility if there's a clean out and all that. But the other thing is too, is what we found the other day is, you can see how reduced down it was. This should be 3/4, which is reduced down to 1/2 inch.
Yeah.
So you're losing volume and pressure too.
Part of your question, we don't know what your plumber did. We've seen them zigzag all through the yard getting to the house.
Yeah, I get it. So if I get in a situation where my line fails and I have to replace it, then I'm going to have a plumber or somebody come in and locate the line, dig up my yard, lay the new.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you are correct, Ray. I mean, I'm not gonna deny it, I mean, but that's,
As long as you're not gonna make me do it right away.
no, we cannot force nobody to do it. It is at your will and your your,
We don't know this, but it's possible that at some point the MDE may require that it's disclosed if you sell the property. We don't know that yet, but that is something that they've talked about, just like you may have to disclose other things about property.
You gotta disclose asbestos, ghosts, and.
There you go. Yeah. It's not in place at this time, but it may become part of it.
Mr. Henry?
Jamie.
Yes, sir.
My mother-in-law, Belva's mom,
Uh-huh.
223 Branch Street.
Mhm.
What is Branch, like Branch Street, Flower Street, Maples?
I think a lot of them are lead goosenecks, but they are in they're in our budget.
Uh-huh.
They are slated to be replaced
Any sense of the time?
I'm saying hopefully within a year.
Okay.
Because we'll be out there, have to do survey, we have to do survey for, not for the property lines, but we have to do site survey for when we go out to bid, because contractors will try to find anything possible to charge you an extra penny.
Uh-huh. The goosenecks, is there, how far back
Well,
was that?
223 is on the opposite side of the church, if I'm not mistaken.
She's on the west side of, before you get to the church coming from 113.
Okay, so she would be,
The house was 63.
yeah, so she would have a lead gooseneck, yeah. And that railroad and all them are slated hopefully within a year to be replaced.
Uh,
That's our goal. We want to try to get all the lead service goosenecks that we know, we would like to start. Our goal is to budget every year, try to do a street.
What about 1986? Would that be?
86 might not, it would probably be just a copper, just like a copper tap. I don't have one.
I think it was outlawed by then.
I think 78, 79 rings a bell when lead was, or 81, somewhere's in there. The engineers would have better, when they get here, you can ask them. They should be here any minute. They kind of forgot what time the,
The lead goosenecks you're gonna replace they're still on your side.
yes, anything from the main to the meter, the town owns.
So are you suggesting that it's possible from the meter in, that could be lead, or do you know?
I've been in the town for 24 years. 99.9% all I've seen is just a lead gooseneck. I've not seen a lead piece of pipe in town limits.
Okay, so you're
Mostly
not-
all we see here in town is either copper, galvanized, or plastic.
Yeah, that 20-inch piece of lead is only attached to the water main. But that was made after that. And it's only that long.
So you're not necessarily, so you're not suggesting that but you're saying in what Ray said was about the potential because of the change in the.
Yes, and I can't guarantee, I don't know if you're not changing the pressure, because you have the pressure right now when the water stops. What's going to hurt you is the volume, because you're going to go, like I said, you're going to go from a line that's ½ inch to a full 3/4. All of our services now, we're doing a 1-inch tap on the main, but we're still keeping the same size meter, so it still has the reducing down, but you still have the pressure now as you would at any time. We're just increasing the volume to the outside of the meter. Yes, sir.
Yeah, when did the original water mains go in?
Well, we moved one on Harrison Avenue this summer. It was 1930. The building was built in 35, so we're figuring 31 to 34, somewhere's in there.
Okay, because mine would be that old.
Yeah, so that's the best of our history. I mean, we found building plans was for the old Southern States. I still call it Southern States, but it was built in 1935. Well, the water main was under it, so they didn't have mechanical equipment and directional drilling like we do nowadays. So the best I can think, it was built in it was installed in 32.
Are they cast iron?
Under that built, no, that was steel. We do have a lot of steel lines still in town, so we have to have, this goes back to some of the towns still a lot older, Broad Street, like Franklin Avenue area, Powhatan. Well, Powhatan's been changed out, but we have to carry wide range bands because steel is a little bit bigger than the ductile iron is now. So we have to make sure we have to have stuff on standby so that if we do have a water main break, we can fix that also. Ray, she had her hand up first.
For the streets you didn't mention, because obviously there's quite a few.
Yes.
Do you have an online schedule listed of, I know you can't pinpoint it, but ballparks of if they're scheduled to be tested or replaced?
As in what streets, I mean,
I'm on Cedar Avenue.
that would probably be my next, that would probably, I'll try to put it in this year's budget coming up. We have a lot coming up in this year's budget that's already been approved by the mayor and council to replace. But as I was stating, it takes time to, they have to get their survey department out here. We have to survey as much possible because all that, whatever we can find and put it into documents, it helps us with bid documents. Because then that way, when they come to bid the job and do the job, they know exactly what they're facing. Not, well, then when they do change orders, it's almost like you're leaving a book open for them, not to write their check, but, they can say, well, this is what we got into it, this is what we want.
We have we have gas lines, abandoned gas lines, stormwater lines, all that has to be worked around. So that's why all the extra work.
And it's going to be an ongoing process. Everyone, I apologize. My name is Josh Taylor. I'm with Davis Boner Fidel. We assisted the town with the lead service line inventory. Thank Jamie for texting me at 5:45. Otherwise, I would have been here at 7:15. It's an ongoing process completing the inventory. We've put together the first draft of the inventory, submitted it to NDE for EPA and NDE guidelines. But we're going to be constantly gathering more data over the next few years in order to continue prioritizing the lines in the order that they get replaced. Of course, we want to go with the highest density, highest volume areas because honestly, we're trying to get the state and federal funding to pay for as much of this as possible. The town is also allocating budgeting funds for replacements. So we're trying to. They have a 10-year schedule. We want to get it done in a lot less time than that.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't speak the language exactly, so.
That's fine.
So I apologize, and it sounds like this is not a panic situation.
No,
We're
ma'am.
not talking about panic, and I walked in a little bit late, so I apologize for that. But, so it occurs to me, okay, so this is going to be done,
Mhm.
and there's a chance that it's going to affect what's on our property in such a way that we're going to need to do something about it.
Yes.
And so I guess I'm wondering, I would hope that it wouldn't work out such that a whole bunch of us needed to have the same sort of work done at the same time in the middle of a summer when you can't get people to do
the
work because they're all working for.
There are
People
so
in the
many,
summer.
there are so many unknowns
Yeah.
on a given street.
Okay.
You may not have done any plumbing work to
Right.
this line since
Yeah.
the house was built, but your neighbor may have.
Right.
Or the other ones may have 10 years before that.
Right.
So there's so many factors, it's almost impossible to say, when we hit this street, this is gonna happen.
Mhm.
But we'll obviously do our best to prepare for that.
Yeah.
My last question on the block.
That's okay. No, I'd rather people ask because if they don't ask,
I like your question
No,
so far.
so the only other question, I heard you say, so we as property owners, so I don't know if I have lead, copper, galvanized, I know I don't have plastic.
Okay.
But so when you reconnect to our line, as a courtesy, will you let us know we have?
yes.
Oh.
Because we have to document it and
Yeah.
send it into MDE. Nick has a folder that's 4 inches thick of what we've done and even the unknowns, and we have to document it to make sure. So we have to update it all the time too and put in there like, we at Nate's house we find it's
Right.
it's plastic. Well, we can put in there plastic, or if we find your house and it's galvanized, we can put down there. We have to continually update that list to MDE also.
Even if I know I have lead and elect not to fix it, I still one day probably going to have to disclose it. So we're going to need to know from the experts what we have.
We will do everything possible. When we do the replacement, we will do our due diligence of, we will have a list of everything that's wrote down, what it is, how we tied it in. And my goal is to have a picture of everything. So when somebody goes there and we do a tap, we're looking at new material for our team, but, which I say our team is really, basically, you're our team. We work for you, so we're looking at GPS coordinating so that we know where your tap is, where your, you know. The other thing people don't understand too, and I'm getting off the topic here for on 1 second, but everybody, since we put the new meters in, are covering the meters up. It's all fine and dandy till you have a water leak, then you're calling me out there at 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, I put mulch over it and I can't find it. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be, you know, but I know I'm live and I'm pretty certain there's not many people watching it, but if you cover that meter up and you call me at 1 o'clock and you have water running out of your first floor door and I can't find that meter, it still goes the same as when we read meters. We had to find them, but I just know that I've noticed people are starting to cover them up a lot more and not taking care of them like we did when we read them.
Thank you.
But when we read them, we also kicked them off, so we knew. So if you see us painting blue lines, even though we still don't manually read them, we have read them electronically, you'll see the blue mark out there. And that's not to say we're cutting, that's just to give us a representation for, it is coming on cold. People start getting frozen pipes, leave their garden hoses hooked to their outside spigots, and they bust. So, yes, sir.
So would you do like we live on Buckingham Road, do you do
Uh-huh.
like 3 or 4 houses at a time kind of thing, or?
It's all going to be determined on contractor. We'll come up with a list of where we're going to go and hand it to them, and that they might do all 5 houses in one day. We don't know.
And it's early days on this. We've not just started the process. It's been ongoing for a few years, but we're hitting certain deadlines that we had to hit for MDE and EPA. So we don't necessarily have a firm schedule in place.
We had a lot of stuff, so I'll get to you. What do you got, sir?
So making the jump from, you guys are collecting all this very valuable, useful information for us.
Uh-huh.
How do we get that information from you?
I'm going to leave that up to them guys. I mean, we have the information, what we've done. I don't know, and I'm going to look at Mary and Kate on this, if we could put it we can't put it all out there on the internet because everybody would.
Because then we'd have to put your address and your information.
And you realize, some people don't want to, you don't want people to,
Would you be open to considering some kind of mechanism for requests or that information?
Oh, sure, of course.
I
Once
think-
we have all the information gathered, it's public information.
But I
it
think
can be requested.
Also, what I think my mind thinks as we talk too, is since we've done with the new Neptune meters, they have a portal that you can log into and look at your water usage. We've not done it yet. It's budgeted, but they were working on a couple others to make sure that, so you all live on Buckingham, I don't know where you live, but you can look at your water usage from every day. So I'm wondering, they're looking into seeing if their technical team can do it, is to take the information that we've received from the test pitting and all that and put it on the portal with the Neptune. So when you go on there, I know you won't look at it every time, but it'll say galvanized, lead gooseneck, and then when we replace it, we would switch it. But there's so much. We're a small town, we're a small department, and we're trying to do. This town was one of the only towns in the state of Maryland got money for lead service replacement. I can say I did just a little bit, but you got to thank these guys. They got us about close to $2 million for the town.
They have kept us well ahead of the loop on this.
And we got money with Montgomery County and Baltimore County. There's only 3, Baltimore County, Montgomery County, and the town of Berlin for lead service replacement. So we're competing with millions of dollars with 100,000 residents, and we're competing with 5,400 residents here with big cities. She had her hand up real quick.
As a follow-up to Ray's question, you said that if you check the owner's pipes and recording what material it would be, does that include the lead status of those materials or just the material itself?
It'd be just the material itself.
And we would know if it was galvanized and
Yeah.
we potentially where we would have to go.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, and Nick can answer this, because Nick handled all the entering the database with MDE, but if you scan the Q code, I think that's how you say it, the QR code, it'll help you, it'll tell you pretty much how MDE classify, or EPA classifies the piping, correct?
That's correct. It will also tell you how to check your own pipes as well, if you were to want to do so.
There-
The QR code does have all that information there as well.
There's a QR code on the back of the flyer. The flyer is the same thing you received with the letter, but on the back side of this one, it has a little more information. There's also links within the letter that you got that will take you. to-
Mr. Maines asked me a question earlier. His land was test pitted, but he got a letter as unknown. Well, he's in a part of town where we don't know if he has a lead gooseneck or not. We know the material on both sides of his meter, which we need to know anyway for this MDE paperwork, but we don't know if he has a lead gooseneck.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify that the information we'll receive from it, or we'll be able to obtain from the town, is really just those few more feet after
Yes.
it leaves the town's responsibility.
Yes, ma'am.
So don't be misled that, well, there's lead in there. Don't be mistaken that somehow, I mean, my house was built in '54, so everything else that goes up to my house, all the pipes in my walls, like, none of that, that's still on us to know, and unless you get it tested yourself, we won't know what it's made of. So, yeah, this isn't like a big, it's not as much information as I think people might perceive.
Yes.
It's this,
And-
it's
Yeah,
as long
but I
as that
mean,
pipe
you
is.
think like out front here, the water main's on that side of the road, but I mean, that's still, I mean, we've put 20, 25, 30 feet in here, you know, so that's still a long service, but, you know, we're trying to, a lot of this stemmed from another city out in, well, up north of us, and everybody knows what happened there when they changed the water, but we've done some stuff in our water system to try to make sure that this material doesn't leach out, I guess you would call it. Is if we run a little bit higher pH, it doesn't have a tendency to deteriorate and go into the system. So we have, you know, as our license, we have a lot of stuff on our plates too, to make sure that you all have the quality of water to drink. And that's, I mean, you see us flushing hydrants. We're not just out there lollygagging. There's 4 or 5 tests going on when that guy's out there flushing that hydrant. One, we're making sure you're getting fresh water. 2, we have to let it run till it clears up or till we feel it's cool enough and take a sample. Now, when it's starting to cool down like this, we won't flush as many hydrants. We'll be going to yard hydrants, however we can get a sample. But just to let you know, I mean, I don't want people to think when we're out there flushing hydrant, we're just out there standing there doing stuff for the heck of it, because there's a lot of stuff that has to go into it. And MDE, you know, I work for the town, but MDE's kind of my boss because they're the regulatory company. I mean, the town has to obey by what they're telling us to do. And that's the bad part. Some of the new mandates is an unfunded mandate, so we have to improvise and come up with ways to, you know, I'm glad for Josh and Nick being on our team because they got us all this money for a new well and all these new water services.
And the focus has been on the towns have been trying to eliminate any lead in water mains for years. That process is ongoing. Now the focus is shifting to the water services, which, as you can see, is the line from the main to the house. Foreshadowing, eventually, the focus is going to shift into the homes. The town has control over what's in the public right of way. The EPA and the state are now telling the town, basically, you need to stick your nose onto private property. They're not telling us we need to go into plumbing in the houses yet, which thank God, but it's coming. The only question is what's going to be, what method are they going to use to try to make people aware of the health concerns with lead and getting their plumbing tested.
Yeah, I think that's the general concern, at least, how far is the reach? And what I'm hearing you say is eventually it's going to reach our front door.
If EPA had their way, we would go in your house and replumb your house if they had their way. But they're not out here, they don't want to fund us and to do that.
I think that eventually what will happen is probably very similar to what happens with doing electric work in your house. If you have a reputable contractor, he may say to you, I can't do this work unless I upgrade X, Y, Z. And so eventually that is what may happen with plumbing.
Home sales will be triggers, home remodels will be triggers.
You
And
know,
it's all,
Like you said, like anything else, like asbestos, I mean, this isn't a big
The
shock.
regulations
No.
come into place
Yeah.
and then it follows from there.
And I would say 18 years ago, when one of my daughters tested a little bit high, we were like, oh, we had our water tested, live right on Main Street. When that was start testing everything else in the house, it was the blinds in
Yeah.
the window,
Oh, we do.
the dust off the blinds that were deteriorating, made not in this country. So,
Yeah, and I mean, you know,
not worried.
like I said, I'm going to result back to is we do our CCR report every year. I mean, it's not fun. Dave just did our lead and copper test, which is definitely not fun because I don't know if anybody was in here that had to do it, but it's, you know, you have to sign a sheet, can't run water for 8 hours. As soon as you turn the water on, you got to get a draw. I mean, it's, you know, we asked a lot of the residents because it's actually, we're testing in every resident's house. We're not testing from a fire hydrant. We have to test in every resident's house. So we tested 20.
The sampling of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of the new developments. Henry's Mill, Henry's Green, Decatur Farms, Franklin Knoll, they're plastic. So they're okay. But that was just because it's newer. Yes, ma'am.
So it's not even so much a question as a comment and a thank you, actually, that connected to what I was saying before. It's all about being prepared and being able to see as far into the future as you can so that you don't get surprised by something. And so so any information that comes out of this that helps us be prepared is greatly appreciated because it's reality.
And I'm sitting here,
It's just
you know,
reality.
like you all brought up questions, but I'm sitting here thinking like in my mind right now is when we do William Street or do your,
Right.
like say like we do any street, we do Cedar, you know, maybe we'll make a door hanger and attach it to 123. I'm just using the number, I don't
Yeah.
know. We can say your private side was, you could have 3 boxes, all they gotta do is check it. And then you know we were there that day and your service was replaced and you know what it is. I don't know if that's like a door hanger or something easy, you know, so you can say, okay, they found out what mine was galvanized, mine's plastic, mine's PVC, you know.
But again, that doesn't take you
But
all
it's
the
a
way
cheap,
to the front
it's a cheap,
door.
it's a cheap thing.
So again, that doesn't take you to the front door.
No.
And I'm happy to get rid of the lead, you know, I don't want it to be unsafe, you know, if that's what we need to do. But figuring out some way of knowing.
Yeah, and we could, I was thinking of door hangers, we could put, you know, I mean, the best we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, we stop at the back of the meter.
Yeah.
Every now and then we go above and beyond, like the other day, Friday night, there was a guy run over a guy's meter pit, it was broke on the private side. We fixed it, it was tree lighting. How do I explain to them, well, you gotta fix it, it was your fault, that a person that came to the town to see the tree lighting broke.
Right.
I mean, that's, you know, there's a fine line, but that's why, you know, we make the decisions we make sometimes in the field, like, we're gonna fix it because, you know, it could have been one of 1,000 that was up here.
Yeah.
So we try to do, you know, I try to be fair to everybody, and if you have questions, I mean, our phones are always on, and, you know, we don't
Well,
mind.
and as you go forward, you know, maybe a workshop someday that helps us know what to do on the
And that's something
part
we
that
could-
we own
we-
as well.
We could do that, and maybe we'll make sure our engineers get here on time that day. I had to get that one, I couldn't pass that one. Yes, sir.
Sorry,
No.
I have no jokes prepared. So there was some mention that there might be some grant funding or public funding for the homeowners potentially.
There could be, I don't know.
It was in the letter.
Yes, I saw it too,
So I was wondering if there is any information on that or when we could expect to hear information regarding that.
Well, the EPA has not disclosed any information for those programs yet. I think they're waiting for all the election stuff to fall out and see what money they have left.
Oh, so it would not be, it would only be from federal funding? There would be no local funding or?
So all funding for this project that is being given to the town is federal funding going through the state level. They're the regulatory agency that handles it all. Local funding, I'm not sure if there's any programs yet for that, but the local funds are being designated to help with the replacements.
Okay.
And if the town is replacing the public side, then they're also replacing the private side within that project.
If the grant funding is awarded.
Yes.
And we're definitely at a disadvantage on this. We're typically following rules, established rules for engineering, design, construction. This has been a moving target since they started talking about it 2 years ago. And literally changing the requirements.
Every meeting we
just
have.
Just a few months ago, they were still changing the requirements. They're learning. The town has been a step ahead of many of the local town, city, and county municipalities. So if we're hitting issues, having concerns, and raising those to the state, they then take those to the federal government. Of course, that all takes months to get anything on. But we have been told that there is going to be funding. How they administer that funding is still up in the air. They have not. We specifically asked MDE, hey, we want to put a website or a link on our documents to send out so that homeowners can seek this out, and they would not give us anything. So as soon as we have information, we'll be passing that along to you. We're going to be, like I said, everyone in the United States is going to be working on this for the next decade plus. I have no doubt that the town of Berlin will exceed that schedule, but as information is obtained, we'll be having meetings like this and passing along information, and especially when funding's involved.
Yeah, and not to, but we have worked on this. This is starting our third year, so this is we've worked on it. Year one, we got the funding, and then last year was all design and everything. And MDE's just, no offense, but we're ahead of them. And then they were like, all right, this is what we plan on. They're like, well, no, we got to go to EPA. So then they go to EPA, then we're 6 months waiting on them to get back to us. So it's been a draw-out process, but
We're ahead of
Yes.
a lot of towns.
And to Josh's point, it is important to remember that this is something that's being experienced throughout the country. Throughout the country, we have old infrastructure that is,
You figure-
are needing to replace it. They're learning more about the materials that were used. And so it's not unique to Berlin, and it certainly is not a failure on the part of the town, past or present.
so we had to, we were one instance amongst all the others. By October 16th, had to have a deadline. By November 16th, you had to have the letters of the unknowns. That's why it was such a short and quick turnaround. I mean, 60 days would have been a little better for us to give us a little breathing room, but 30 days was, you didn't get yours much before November 16th. And, we've been trying to progress. But like Josh said, we're ahead of EPA and them because they don't know what they want. Every time it's a moving wheel, every time it's a moving target. So every time we go somewhere, they're like, well, we want you to do this. We want you to go a little bit further.
They've overstepped consistently, which is kind of what government does, but it's really been throwing us for a loop. Sorry, state and federal government. It's thrown us for a loop because our world has always been in the public right of way, and now we're being told you've got to go beyond your safe zone there. And people don't always like it when you crawl into their house or go into their basement or dig up their property, their grandma's prized begonias. So it's putting us into a position, but I certainly understand because if they didn't try to, if the government didn't step in and say, hey, the towns need to take over this, it'd be Wild West.
It's like anything else. The
Everybody
government
be trying to get a
does
plumber, their own plumber, and, so if the town can assist with organizing that effort, even at the private level, by bringing a licensed, reputable plumber on to do, or multiple plumbers on to do portions of towns, that's just something that I foresee coming down the road in the future. Of course, if anybody wants to do their own work, they'd be more than welcome to, but there's a cost savings with having 100 homes done at the same time or similar time or all the same street. So we're hoping that's the way that they go. But right at this point, we're just guessing.
And to Josh's point about doing your own work, if you know that you've already had this work done, and where you know, hey, I had a plumber do some work, you may already have it, that information, and you can provide that to us to save one step. So if that's something you're aware of, you can let us know.
You're going to have broader implications down the road with regard to property valuations, especially if you have a property that has a lead service line. So one of the things that I suggest you to think about is in terms of incenting somebody to change their line, whether it becomes a form of tax credit or something like that. But that's, if I'm faced with that decision one day, that's going to help me get across the finish line.
Think about what drives property value now. A big part of that is location and water and sewer service.
Yeah.
So this is, you're right, this is going to become, the little line at the bottom of the realtor's advertisement for the property. It's either going to be at the top, real big, no lead, or it's going to be down at the bottom, that's unknown.
You have your hand up.
Just out of curiosity, and I was a little late, so you may have already said this, so I apologize, but what percentage of the town is in this unknown classification? Do you know?
It's about a little over a third, if I'm not mistaken, right around a third. So there's roughly 1,950 services. And like I said,
600 letters, so.
yeah, so like I said, some of them aren't unknown, but Nick had a drop dead date. Because when you checked the box and you knew what it was, it went from asking one question to 50 questions. And it kept going for this one address. So we had to stop at one point in time. I mean, we've worked on this for a year. We started January, we worked on it for 10 months. So we started when we were replacing our meters in January, we started doing a lot of our test pitting too. But yes, there's about a third of the town that's unknown. We could bring back some of the older guys at Marvin and them guys, they could tell you what was in the ground. I've been here 24 years, I've done pretty good. We were riding down the street with Nick one day and I'm like, that house has been changed, that's been changed. He's like, how do you remember that? And I'm like, it's embedded into me. I mean, I've been here long enough, I know, what's been changed. And since we've done the October 16th, I'd say we've probably changed out 15 services since October 16th. And that's because of there were lead goosenecks, a couple of them have been leaking, and some of them have been started leaking from the meters being replaced. We are starting to see a little bit of that because they had to move all that stuff that's been in the ground for 50 years. So that's,
And even when we knew something, if we didn't have proof, if we didn't have documentation, we still had to qualify that in the inventory. Because they don't want people just saying, oh yeah, everything's plastic.
JP remembers that it was.
Well, but another thing is a lot of people, the downtown, it's restoration. Everything downtown is either under blacktop or concrete. Restoration is expensive. You got to order a 6-yard minimum of concrete if you only put a 1-yard pad. Well, you had to order 6 yards to get that 1 yard, and it's almost $1,000 now. So I mean, restoration is very expensive. So we were kind of trying to not pick and choose, but this is part of the old part of town. I would venture to say a lot of this downtown is probably has a lead gooseneck. We've done a lot of work on some of the streets changing valves, and we know we see the size of the mains and stuff. We do know, we do have plans back to 1934. So we kind of have an idea of what the services are, and we do, so.
In the past few years, how many positive lead tests has the town had?
None.
And I don't know if you already covered this, but the systems, the water in the system creates a coating in the interior of the pipes. So that protects the water from leaching the lead. If there's a change in the water quality, that can all change. That's what happened in Flint, Michigan. There was a significant change in the water quality, and it leached all the lead. Water leached the lead back out of any steel pipe, galvanized pipe, so even the lead goosers that we have not been a threat to the town because of that coating that builds up on the inside of the lines. And it's an inert coating. You don't want to see it, but it's inert. But that's why, even though we're talking about lead goosenecks, if you went home and tested your water right now in your house, you would probably have 0 lead, even if you had a lead gooseneck, because you have that coating protecting the drinking water from that. That's not good enough anymore. We need to remove the lead in case there's a significant change in the water quality.
Yeah, when I do my lead samples for the state, almost every one of them are done in old part of town. None of them are done with new plastic lines. So most of them are going to be coming through those lead goosenecks, and they all come back 0 lead in the water.
And town's been using plastic pipe since the 80s, and plastic services probably since the late 80s. So, you know, it's just the old stuff that we need to worry about.
What year was lead, you couldn't use lead goosenecks? 81, 80?
So it's 79?
I said 78, 79, 80, I thought was in there. Does anybody else have any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I do. So just it seems like a lot of people who have asked questions, they are saying their houses were built in the 30s and 50s, which would be very valid that there could be lead. But the use of PVC has been around since the, 90s?
70s, 80s?
Yeah.
So any of the newer homes, so our house is amongst older homes, but it was built in 2000 on a vacant lot.
Yeah, but you're probably all PVC.
Right, that's
New-
because the qualifications for whatever the plumber put in at the time.
Yeah, because
would
2000,
talk about that.
they did away with lead in 2000, and you couldn't have lead in the fittings or anything after 2010, 12?
Yeah, NL.
Yeah, no lead, sir, you know, so you're PVC, your house is all PVC, I bet my paycheck on
I'm
it.
99% sure. I was just curious
Yeah.
as to, with some of like the newer builds, were they, when those water meters were put in, were they required to say, this is the material we use? Were they required to tell the town that? No.
No.
Okay.
But the county might have a record of it.
Yep.
Because the county does all the town's plumbing inspector, or they do all the, county does all the inspections for plumbing, water, and sewer for the town, and electrical. So we wouldn't, they would keep all record of that.
Now, it depending on where your house is, the main could be an old main with a new service. So it could still be I don't know where you live, but.
We're on West Branch.
So there could still be a concern on that road. Now, did we replace Lionel Bridge?
Some of them are newer homes.
The only.
All the way to the main?
Yes.
I was about to say, the only exception would be if there was a vacant lot with the public side already installed
Yeah.
to a meter.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
Plus, right now with the new sprinkler code for the Maryland fire code and all that, we're having to upgrade the services. So if you see a house gets demoed or significant remodel, they're having to put a sprinkler system in for fire suppression. So we have to upgrade the service because the old 3/4, you know, this is 1-inch poly here. So it's a lot more flow than the 3/4. You can see the difference in the two. So we, you know, I know everybody's like, oh, it's only a 1/4 inch, but you wouldn't believe what a 1/4 inch volume does. Because when they put the heads in, they have to do a flow test. So, I mean, that's another thing, you know, that we've had to replace a lot of services because the people are upgrading their housing too.
Jamie,
Yes, sir.
the graphic there
Uh-huh.
showing the water meter on the left side of the sidewalk.
Uh-huh.
My mother-in-law's meter is in the yard
Uh-huh.
on the other side of the sidewalk. And I see that curb stop valve. So
Mhm.
is there a shut-off valve away from the meter to, or how?
Our thoughts are is when we do the new ones,
Uh-huh.
is we're going to add curb stops to everybody, if I'm not mistaken. That we're going to add curb stops to every residence because that way, if you have a leak, you can turn the water off without calling us too.
So do you think in a situation that,
We do, one thing we do want to do is stay away from is, we don't want our meters in the sidewalk. because the meters, with the new meters, they raise up a little bit, and they meet ADA compliant, but we want to keep the meter out of the sidewalk in case we ever have to do a maintenance to it. You know, we can pull the top off. If it's in the sidewalk, we only can work in like you see the side, some of them, and
Right.
our goal is to keep them all out of the sidewalks from now on. And we want to put curb stops on all the private side, is that way the residents can get their own key, cut the water off, and not bother us. We don't mind coming in. This is our job.
No, but when you've got water
But
flowing.
if you got water
till
running out your,
morning,
yeah, you can go out there and cut it off real quick, and, you know.
And it will be right near the meter, you're saying?
I'd say within 2 foot probably.
Yeah, well, the curb stop on the private side will be 2 foot outside the building, where the
Yeah.
water goes into the building.
We want to replace as much of the service as we can between the road and the building. So the connection then to the plumbing at the building will be a valve there. So that would be the ideal place to shut off your water if you have a leak in your house.
And the other thing is, and I'll take full responsibility, we've put the new meters in. We're looking at getting the portal, get set up. Hopefully we'll have it up and running after first of the year. I don't know exactly how it'll work, but you'll have a login. You'll be able to go on, look at your water usage every day. It kind of lags 24 hours, but you will be able to see, you know, if you get a door hanger, and I know I'm getting off, Dave's been very good. We got down to very, very little leaks, but now we've jumped right back up when it's getting cold. People are running water a little bit more, you know, but with our new meters, we can see down to the 1/10 of a gallon if you have a leak in an hour. We have seen some up to 128 gallons an hour. There was an outside hose, the kids were playing with a hose and left it on, and I will tell you this, the ones that are, them lay flats that are supposed to scrunch back up and be easy, they will bust, and they will flow a lot of water in a short amount of time. You know, we've spent a mess of money in the meters, and we're not here to watch you. So don't think we're here to watch you. We're just here for conservation and better accountability. NBE wants us to be down within 10%. We're not there. We're getting there, but we were way off. So now we should be getting with these new meters. We're nailing down onto it now. But we were off 30% before, but NBE wants to see you under 10 or under for water usage of loss.
There was a question asked earlier, I want to make sure we fully answered it. If someone has a question about the information that we've gathered through this inventory to date or in the future, what is the best way for them to reach out to the town? Email or stop at town hall?
Either way,
I would say the info at berlinmd.gov. It doesn't give your name, but it's the best way Kate can keep record of it. And we have a book downstairs that has everybody's, it's 4 inches thick. And we should be able to go in there and email you right back through Info Berlin within a couple business days.
And that's in
that's in the letter.
Okay.
That email address is in the letter, and yeah.
We want to be completely transparent with this information, but with the understanding that we're still gathering information.
Yes, as I said earlier, it is early days. There's still a lot of information to be gathered. So if you email us tomorrow, we may not be able to help, but.
And to anybody, you probably already covered this, but to anybody who's already provided information to the town to help us out with trying to fill out this inventory, we really appreciate it. If you haven't, we certainly would appreciate gathering as much information as possible, because it's going to save everybody time and money in the long run.
Thank you for this workshop.
Yeah, it's really good.
Thank you for getting ahead of the problem that we're doing. And I look forward to getting 2 new service connections.
Thanks. Show and tell in front if you like. See it.
Thank you.